All right, today I'm going to mix it up a little bit. I'm going to do my homemade, really moist chocolate chip cookie with walnuts. And the walnuts are optional, but I like to have them with walnuts. So the first thing we're going to do, we'll turn on our oven because it's a really short prep time to 350 degrees. And we want to make sure that we got 2 baking sheets with parchment paper. I already have them ready. And then a cooling rack if you got it. If not, you can just let them cool in the pan. All right, so the first thing we'll do, we'll start out with our 2 large eggs in the bowl. And I like to use a vanilla powder. It's called vanillin. But if you don't have that, you can use a vanilla extract. So we'll go ahead and put that in first. And I like to use a powder because it helps get rid of that eggy flavor. You won't get that. The vanilla extract, that'll do that as well. We'll go into our baking powder, our salt, and then our melted butter. You want to make sure it's completely melted so it's a lot easier to whisk and mix up. And before we start going into our other ingredients, we'll go ahead and whisk this and make sure everything's fully incorporated. All right, so I've whisked that together really well, and I'll be using a large spoon to mix in the rest of the ingredients. Next in, put our sugar, and that's our white sugar, and then our brown sugar. And our chocolate chips. And our walnuts. Again, you don't have to use walnuts. If you don't use walnuts, you can actually increase the chocolate chips by a little bit, maybe a third of a cup or a quarter cup. So we'll give this a little bit of a mix before we put our flour in. And then we'll go ahead and throw in our last ingredient, our all-purpose flour. And then we just want to go ahead and fold everything in, make sure that everything's completely mixed. You don't have to over-mix it, but just make sure everything's incorporated and kind of even. All right, so everything is mixed really well. It looks even. And so what you're going to do, you're just going to make some balls about the size of a quarter of your hand. And I tried to give you a little close-up to show you the size of that. And we're going to use our large baking sheet. And what we're going to do is put 2 across because they do expand, they'll spread, so you want to give them enough room. So each baking sheet, you'll probably get 6 on each. And this recipe is probably good for about 24, so you should only need 2 baking sheets. You may have a little left over, so you may need a third one. But we're going to bake 1 baking sheet at a time. And we want to use the middle rack of the oven. So I didn't mention that a little bit earlier, but your oven should be preheated to 350, and we only want to use 1 rack in the oven in the middle. And what that's going to do is going to make sure that it bakes evenly. All right, so I got 6 on my baking sheet. I tried to get them as even as possible because you kind of want them the same size. That way they bake evenly. And we'll go ahead and throw them in for about 10 to 11 minutes. You want to watch them get that nice light golden brown because if it gets darker, it's really going to overcook. And once you pull them out, they're still going to bake for a little bit longer. So you want to get that nice light golden brown, and I'll show you in a minute. All right, so this is still super hot. You want to be careful. If you want to use a glove, but I'll just pull the paper off and throw them on the cooling rack. And then once we got that on the rack, I'll go ahead and just be careful and pull these right off the paper. And then I'll go ahead and let them cool for about 10-15 minutes, and they should be solid enough to start eating. All right, I'll be back in a couple. All right, so I've let them cool for about 5 to 10 minutes. They look perfect, and I'm going to go ahead and have my first try with a nice glass of milk. That's delicious. A little bit of the walnut. Chocolate chips are everywhere. Still moist in the middle. It's got that nice golden brown on the bottom and the lighter color on top. It's perfect. Nothing better than that. Enjoy.